With the news of atrocities against civilians in Ukraine piling up, the International Criminal Court and other organizations are gathering evidence to bring perpetrators to justice. Marti Flacks is the director of the Human Rights Initiative at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Marti, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Give us an idea of the process for identifying and bringing perpetrators of war crimes to justice.
So there's at least three things that the prosecutor is going to need in order to bring successful accountability to this atrocious situation in Ukraine. The first is evidence of serious international crimes, the types of crimes that can be prosecuted at international tribunals, particularly in this case, egregious war crimes. And we're certainly seeing no lack of evidence of that between the video and audio recordings, the drone footage, the satellite images that we're seeing coming out of this conflict, both recorded by civilians as well as investigators, journalists, and government officials. We're seeing widespread evidence of what certainly appears to be a campaign of war crimes, both in the air campaign and on the ground by Russian forces. The second thing that's always needed in our international system is a venue with jurisdiction to try these crimes. Fortunately, in this case, we have a number of options of different locations where these crimes can be prosecuted. First and foremost, inside Ukraine, where the atrocities are being committed. The Ukrainian government is certainly willing and hope to be able to prosecute these crimes themselves, assuming their justice system and their government is functioning in the future and able to do so. There's also a number of countries that have opened their own individual investigations of these atrocities under the principle of universal jurisdiction. So countries like Germany, Spain, Sweden, and others have opened investigations with the possibility of themselves trying these perpetrators as well. And then, as you referenced, there is the International Criminal Court, which does have jurisdiction in this case because Ukraine has granted it that opportunity after the Russian invasion of Crimea in 2014. And so the ICC has begun its own investigation of these crimes. But the third leg of that stool that's really important to achieve international justice is identifying defendants. And that's where I think it's going to take some time and a significant amount of international effort to be able to try individuals, both to identify the specific people who are responsible for these crimes at the ground level, but also at a command and policy level, and then actually securing them as defendants to stand trial.
Well, as you say, it takes time. I mean, this could take years for, a perpetrator of an atrocity to actually stand trial.
Absolutely. It does take a long time. So just last week, we saw the first trial commence at the International Criminal Court for a defendant accused of crimes in the context of the genocide in Darfur, which began almost 20 years ago. So this type of effort does involve patience. It does involve persistence. We're going to have to wait for an opportunity either for someone accused of a crime to travel to a place where the government is willing to arrest them and turn them over to an international court, or for a change in government or situation in Russia where they have an incentive to actually cooperate with an accountability process. So that will take time, but I think if we're patient and we continue to persist in collecting and preserving that evidence, we will see that opportunity down the line.
So what role does the U.S. government play, if any, in bringing war criminals to justice?
The U.S. has an incredibly important role. We've had a very fraught relationship with the International Criminal Court over the years. We have not supported the institution. We have not become a member of the ICC, but we have supported individual cases that the ICC is investigating, most famously the case of Darfur, where we allowed the Security Council to refer that case to the International Criminal Court because of the seriousness of the crimes that were being committed there. The U.S. has a lot of resources, a lot of expertise that it can lend to the efforts of the prosecutor, who needs things like Russian and Ukrainian language speakers and financial resources to conduct what is going to be a massive and difficult investigation. But most importantly, the U.S. and its allies have information that could prove invaluable to the prosecutor to make his case for war crimes. And that's because the prosecutor is going to need to identify not just the individual perpetrators on the ground, but who's responsible for giving those orders or creating those policies at the top. And the U.S. and others have an incredible amount of information about how the Russian military is structured, how policy decisions are made, and to the extent they're able to share this, intelligence about specific acts that have been carried out by the Russians during this war, and that to the extent that they can declassify and share that information, it could really make a difference to prosecutors.
You know, Marti, it's the age of everyone having a camera and a video recorder in their pocket. There's social media. What's different now about this war as compared to previous conflicts?
Absolutely. So what's incredible about this conflict is the volume of information and really evidence that we're seeing about the crimes being committed. So everyone who is documenting with their cell phones and videos the things that they're observing on the ground, as well as the drone footage and the commercial satellite imagery that we now have that can really pinpoint the locations of attacks, the context in which those attacks are happening, the fact that, when the Mariupol Drama Theater was hit, for example, no other surrounding buildings appear to have been targeted. So it certainly looks like that was the target rather than an accident. That kind of evidence and information is really important to prosecutors, because what they need to show for a lot of these war crimes is intent. And that really helps define that scope.
Finally, Marti, is there any coordination going on among these different groups so that the victims don't have to give their testimonies several times?
It's a really important question, because when you have so many people looking into this, you do need to be incredibly sensitive to the stories that these people have to tell over and the trauma that they've experienced. So certainly there is some informal coordination efforts happening on the ground, but I think we need to be very cognizant as tribunals and prosecutors start to bring specific charges, that we focus our attention on those opportunities to bring people to justice and focus our support on those opportunities.
All right. Well, Marti, thank you so much for joining us. Nice to talk to you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.